Well, welcome everyone. What a great honor to be sitting and moderating a panel with such a fantastic a team of women trailblazers. I'm going to start off and ask you each to introduce yourselves, and nobody can do that better than you. So I'm just going to go the order that it appears on my screen. So Amy, if you can kick off and do a brief introduction, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Amy Peck. I'm the founder and CEO of Endeavor XR. We do a lot of front-end strategy for immersive technologies, working with some of the largest companies in the world. And I am a proud member of Women of the Future and very, very excited as we move forward into this next evolution.
Thank you so much. Maria.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. Very excited to speak with all of you. So I'm Maria Pace, and currently I am part of Google XR Hardware, also global partnerships and strategies. But I'm also very proud to be part of the Women of the Future and join this effort with all of you. Prior to Google, I was at Microsoft working on the hardware as well for the HoloLens MR device. Thank you.
Fantastic. That's certainly an exciting insight into what the future holds for us. Jennetta.
Hi, everyone. Jennetta George. I am the Global AI Delivery Leader for Slalom Consulting. I also am the CEO and founder of my company, Artificially Intelligent. We work as AI advisors for executives, helping them figure out business use cases for AI. And this is my first event with Women of the Future, so I'm really excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. And I look forward to hearing what insights you have for us. And Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne Ahola Ward, CEO of CircleClick, best known as the mother of startups, which I was dubbed by CNN in 2017. Published author of O'Reilly book, SEO Battlefield, in also 2017, which I guess was a good year for me. I am rather new to Women of the Future, but I would call myself a groupie. If I'm not a member already, I probably should be. And I'm so excited to be here. I helped AI startups grow. I work across all of marketing tech, especially in the Web3, metaverse spaces, but I'm very excited to have spent more time this past few years in AI, and I'm excited for this panel. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again all for being here today. So I know we want to talk about the business use cases of AI, but I want to kick off and just take one step back and talk about the impact of AI, because everybody looks at it from a different perspective. And, 2023 kicked off with ChatGPT being the big thing. And if your households are anything like mine, it was being used for homework, to write emails, to create presentations. And it really sort of elevated everybody into understanding that there were real applications to be able to benefit from AI. So I'd like all of you just to give me your perspectives and what do you believe the biggest impact AI has on society, generally speaking? Amy?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I would even take a step back further and look at how, 2 years ago, we were still talking about, metaverse, and then kind of Web3 started to kind of creep into that conversation. And then recently it's AI. And I think the interesting difference between the two, and something we have to look at with technology in general, especially relative to consumer utility, is that, ChatGPT instantly had day-to-day utility for just about everybody, which is why it took off. Like, I have a son in law school now who is so thankful because now he can pull up case law, from these sort of archaic sources in seconds. And what was interesting is that we kind of missed that with, metaverse and XR technologies. Like, we know the business cases, but outside of gaming for consumers, it's still not that interesting. And we just don't have the level of adoption. So I think it's an important lesson with the way that we're promoting technology really has to be human-centric and have truly day-to-day utility before it's going to start to scale.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I come at this from a slightly different point of view, and I agree with everything you said when we look at it from a consumer-facing point of view. I've been building AI systems for the past decade, so way before anyone really understood what AI was or was getting the value from the user's standpoint. So when I think about enterprise-level use cases and how it's actually affecting all of us behind the scenes without us even knowing is coming from automation. So, right now we're all kind of scared or not sure of, is AI going to take our jobs? When we talk about automation, we think, oh, the jobs that I'm doing, they're going to be taken over by AI. But at the end of the day, that's really not true, because the way AI is automating things is by keeping humans in the loop, but letting them be experts at things instead of making them do things that are tedious, that a computer can easily do through categorization or other means. Frees people up to be able to actually add more value to the company. So that's how I've been seeing AI bring value for years and years and years. And now with GPT, it's just kind of in more people's hands to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, having that sort of utility that is so evident and so easy to interact with really makes it easy to understand. And do you have anything to add to the impact on society that AI can have, broadly speaking?
Absolutely. I think as a frame of reference, I'm a data person. I always like to look at the data. Snapchat, which is a program that was built for addiction and designed and is now being litigated for its addictive and data capturing qualities, took 9 months to reach 100 million active users. It took Chat GPT a fraction of that, and in doing so became the fastest growing app of all time. It broke all the records. So I've had people that are not in tech ask me about it. I've had my very low tech mother asked me about it. People that didn't really care have started to care. So it's reached its mass market moment faster than anyone could have anticipated. I would also say that I think consumers were using it before they realized they were, but that's okay. Now they're the only difference to me, especially as someone who works in the field of SEO, the only difference now is that we're talking about it and we're aware of it.
Right. Yeah.
So I will add, I'm going to put my hardware hat for a second. And I will add, with mixed reality, there is huge intersection between the XR devices as well as AI. And of course, AI needs context, and AR as well. MR needs context as well. In fact, a lot of the devices already have sensors. So speaking of data, this is a huge intersection that can benefit in so many ways, especially generative AI. And we're starting to see, the potential of this, right? If we think, for example, of assistants, currently we rely on things like Siri, Google, Alexa, but imagine having this companion that adds even more value, as well as even in the workplace, having more collaborative. And somebody just touched on, oh, is this going to take away my job or my position? But I view it more of an enhancement, right? Something that can help productivity and can help collaboration as well. And then imagine in the gaming world, creating a very immersive type of experience as well. So AI can definitely provide so many benefits to this. And, going back to the Chat GPT or other tools being developed right now, for example, Bard, this is, it's here to stay. And so it's important that we learn how to best use this to our advantage. So I'm super excited for these tools that we have today.
Yeah, it really is exciting times, and it feels like we're sitting on the precipice of some really great things. And I really like, I think, Anne, you mentioned that we've all been using AI for a lot longer than we realize it. It doesn't have that tag attached to it, but it's certainly integrated into a lot of applications that we all use regularly. So let's pivot slightly to business and how businesses, big and small, can use AI and the power of AI to optimize their business. And I think, a lot of the questions that I always encounter is first of all, how do we do it? But what are the risks with doing it? And I know that a lot of organizations I've engaged with jumped in too fast, and they learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So from your experience, can what are the risks with adopting AI into a business, and what should people look out for when they try and streamline or optimize their business efficiency by integrating the opportunity that AI brings?
Yeah, I can start with this one. So as an AI consultant, this is kind of what I come in to do, to be the expert at with businesses of all different AI maturities. So we usually will label them like early stage maturity, mid stage, and late stage. And usually what differentiates that, a big part of what differentiates that is data governance, or just how you're handling your data. So to kind of break that down, to make it really simple to understand, from startup to big companies like Apple, Netflix, Google, everyone is collecting data, and that data needs to be understandable. It needs to be cleaned. It also needs to be ethical and unbiased, right? So essentially making sure that we are including diversity and we are able to understand the data in a way that the machine will be able to use it well. So depending on how well a company has kind of mastered that data and governed that data, will allow them to be able to utilize AI tools on top of it. So that's kind of a base starting point for all organizations.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, it really does start with having clean data and accessible data and moving on beyond that. Anybody else want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about very different aspects of this, because, you know, that's one of the challenges we also face, even from the hardware point of view. It's do we want to process data, for example, on the device, which takes up a lot of battery and processing time, etc., or do we want to have more of a cloud or a different which then requires connectivity, right? And so we are having to address a lot of these problems. And then, does the data that we need, is it for personal use, or is it something I want to share with a group of people, right? For example, if I am somewhere in the world and I see a yellow balloon, do I want everybody to have knowledge I'm anchoring this yellow balloon here so everybody to see, or is it more of a personal data? And so these are very good questions that I think we still need to solve.
Yeah, and Jennetta mentioned, kind of policies. I think one of the challenges companies are having is, what are the policies around AI? What are the security metrics that they're using? How are they handling the data? And especially with the proliferation of the devices, especially with eye tracking, now we have biometric data. We have biometric data of our employees. And so how are we handling that data? So I think, one of the things that companies should really be looking at is, what are the policies that, from cross-functional practices within their business units. What are those policies? How are they securing the data? And then the next stage, of course, is then how do we, gain better knowledge? How do we optimize our systems and processes? And I'm even seeing companies that are putting AI on top of AI, which is a great concept. But we have to be careful, and there has to be so much testing. I think Jennetta also mentioned that we're not, encoding, unconscious bias into these algorithms. So we just have to be smart about how we move forward.
So each of you have sort of mentioned the ethical responsibilities, the governance issues, data sovereignty, and obviously that's really important. What responsibility does business have to put their own self-governance in place? Because right now we're sort of in early stage development. There's not a lot of governance. There are no bodies that seem to be regulating this. We really are pioneers in this space. So from a business perspective, what is the responsibility of every organization to put self-governance in place and ensure that we're getting the right protocols established from the get-go? Anne, I think you're muted.
And yeah, you might be.
Sorry, I was muted because my dog decided to want to interrupt the panel. I think it's absolutely, not going to be happening on a company level where we're going to see this sort of regulation and governance happen. I think companies such as Google size, sure, they're going to have review boards. They're going to have, a little bit more in place because they're more prominent. But startups that I'm working with, absolutely not. The best they'll be able to do is have a diverse team, have the right people in the room. And I think that's all we can expect. And I think it's not been a cakewalk to regulate things like social media, privacy. I don't think this is going to happen on, on a congressional level anytime soon. They're obviously grappling with what to do with TikTok. But, I had a friend say to me the other day, a colleague say, LLM is the new SEO. And I thought that was really funny, because it sort of is. But on another level, I've been working in an unregulated industry my entire career. SEO has never been regulated. And yet here we are, we're fine. I think we're going to have some incidents. I think we're going to have some unfortunate things happen, but I think that we will learn from those things. And I think that that's going to happen on an industry level, not on a company level.
That's a really good point. And I can speak a little from experience. A few years ago, I was serving on the ACT-IAC Council of AI, where we had a really small team that was in charge of building the AI playbook for the United States. And our input to that was, the executive order that came out, I think in 2016, where the government, the president essentially laid out a few things that he wanted to see happen with AI. And then it was our job to figure out, okay, how do we actually implement this, and what are the guideposts, what are the best practices that we're going to use? That has gone from a nice to have to a need to have really, really fast. And I think that that's the point that we're still catching up with, making those best practices actually become law and actually become visible to companies. We're fortunate that we have these big cloud service providers like AWS, GCP, Azure that are building in security protocols, best practices, federated learning, things that are allowing us to build security into the AI. So I think the more that we can equip business CXOs with that knowledge of, hey, you don't have to do it by yourself. We can set you up with people that already know what they're doing, and just kind of enable you to be able to utilize it is going to be an unlocking feature for that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The only thing I would say relative to your comment, and that we can't rely on companies, I still think we should apply pressure, because I think that there is so much danger of especially PII, personally identifiable information, a lot of the biometric data. There's a leak of that proportion is exponentially worse than something that what we're seeing today, where it might be address, maybe have a social security number. So I think we need to we have some frameworks. And as Jennetta mentioned, you've got the cloud providers who have some frameworks. I think we have to start applying pressure to companies that we do business with as consumers or in a B2B setting, and ask them, what are their policies? What are they doing to protect the data? And shine a light on, where they are today and where they need to go. Because if we wait for regulatory, they're mired in all of the technology that's coming at us with, gale force. And so we can't wait for regulatory. I think we have to take responsibility.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Until there's money in it, I don't know that that's going to happen. But I like your ideals.
No, I mean, I completely agree. This is a very, very important topic. And, it brings me memories to the movie Ready Player One, right? And we definitely do not want to have a world that looks like that. And so it's important that we take action, and the earlier, the better. I'm excited to see that people are publishing white papers, they are having reviews, they panel sessions, and even building organizations to discuss ethics and what it means and what actions and the risks, etc. This is super important. And so, we cannot afford to get it wrong. Of course, as Anne said, we're going to have mistakes, but the more we prevent, the better it is, because these are amazing tools that we can use to help improve the lives of many people around the world. And so that's what we aim for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the power that this has for positive change is immense. But we just got to, stay on the right track. And Jennetta, you're so right. I think you mentioned in 2016 you started having those conversations at a congressional level, and it's 2023 now, and we're sort of not there yet. These things move slowly. So putting pressure on private business to do the right thing, I think, is really important, and it lies on all of us to ask those tough questions and to keep them honest. Let's pivot a little bit. Often when we talk about integrating AI into business, it's through the lens of efficiency and cost savings. But let's look at it through a human lens. What is the impact on the workforce, on workplace dynamics, on careers? where does that leave people in the mix? Jennetta, I see you nodding. Do you
Yeah,
want to jump in on that?
I'm trying to not jump in too quickly. I think so. I started the conversation off in the first question talking about a little bit about how this impact looks when we think about that automation point of view. A big part of what I do when I come into companies, companies will call us and they'll say, "Hey, we want AI." Depending on the size of the organization, though, especially for bigger organizations, I don't like to just deliver and build an AI product. I like to enable companies to be able to work with AI. So what that means is, taking them hand by hand and implementing the tool, but then also teaching them from beginning to end of this is how you build an AI model. This is how you then govern it. This is how you manage it in production and make sure that it is remaining, a top quality model for years to come. So within a company's organization, you're going to see the skill set really rising and the demand for people wanting to advance their career in AI really rising. So we as the AI professionals, we need to figure out how are we giving this to companies in a way that is serving them. And ChatGPT is doing an amazing job. I will say for myself, as someone who has over the years become less and less hands-on with AI. So, my skills are a little bit rusty, but if I need to go write code, I have enough knowledge that I can ask GPT the right questions, and it tells me how I need to do things. So as long as we can get people that foundational building block of knowing the questions to ask, AI is really going to help us build it.
Yeah, absolutely. Amy?
Yeah, I think, when we start to think about our day-to-day utility, the way that's going to affect jobs, and I love what I may misquote you, Jennetta, but I love what you said in the very beginning, where it's really just, making you better, making you an expert at your job. And I think if we approach it from, augmenting our skill set as opposed to a lot of the fear that we're hearing, because that makes better headlines, frankly. I think we're going to find, where that sweet spot is. And, every company that we work with, there's always going to be a human in the loop in the foreseeable future, unless it's a purely rote activity. Right. And if it's a purely rote activity, you don't want your humans doing those kinds of tasks, right? Because the burnout level is so high. But I think the other really important thing from a cultural standpoint is that it's going to help us. We always forget that consumers are the workforce and workforce are the consumers. And the more that consumers, even if it's in a work context, start to understand how to use these tools, my personal hope is that's going to help us extrapolate to start managing our own data, right? Because I don't think we understand what it's going to take to manage our own databases, right? We think of the amount of data about us that's out there in the world already that's completely unmanaged. And so in order for us to take more control of it, we have to learn how to use these tools. We have to learn to trust the tools. And I think they're going to feed each other. Right? We often have like, oh, this is a consumer use case and this is a business use case. But I think where technology is concerned, the more that consumers understand, the more that we understand in business, the more we bridge that gap.
I think that's a great point, Amy. And I mean, I just think about how we're going to process the billions of cat photos I have on all my devices. But I do think that where this really gets interesting, at least for me personally as a geek, is in the medical space. We have had all these medical devices for how many years collecting data. We have swaths of unstructured medical data. And what better way to put this into practice and to really learn about ourselves as humans? I mean, I think one of the more interesting medical studies was the sepsis watch at Duke University, where they were using machine learning to more quickly detect sepsis, which is the most common cause of death in hospitals. But imagine all that medical device data actually being put to use that we've been collecting and not knowing what to do with, and sitting in various random databases across the world. I mean, that's very, very exciting to me. what we could learn about ourselves, how we can extend our lives. I think the possibilities are pretty endless.
Yeah, and to add to that, for some reason, I'm remembering a colleague I had in grad school, and he was measuring some device and collecting data. And he was just concentrating on certain points on the data. Everything else was noise. Until he thought, is this really noise? And he started taking a deeper look at what so-called noise, and found out amazing data that no one had looked up before. And so I think, even right now, we have huge amounts of data, as you guys mentioned, and a lot of it we just stored as, what? This is white noise. It's because what do we do with all this data? How do we process all this data? What does this mean? Right? And so I think there is a lot we can learn from all this data, but we have to utilize these tools, as Amy mentioned. We have to learn the value of these tools, how to put them to practice, and help us in return. And then, of course, in the workplace, I mean, imagine the collaborative, the efficiency, all of this, more optimizing the workspace is huge. Is huge.
Yeah. Well, what I'm really hearing is that, everybody gets told you need to embrace AI. If you don't embrace it, you're going to get left behind. And I think that that's, the great wisdom on this. But there's still the reality that organizations are cutting back on roles and are not hiring in roles that AI can do. I think last week or the week before, IBM, put out a statement they were cutting close to 8,000 jobs that could be replaced with AI. So even though there is a component where people need to reskill and upskill, it does seem to be having a real impact on the workforce. And if you take, the IBM example and you scale that up, that's a lot of people that could be out of jobs. What would you say to those people?
I mean, I would say to the, people that used to collect firewood and operate elevators for us, congratulations, you're moving on to something more interesting. If AI is able to take your job at this point in time, you are probably bored.
That's true.
Like if where we are now, I think looking at it as the enemy is the absolute opposite. I think look at it as a thing to make your job easier, make you superhuman. So I think evolution in ourselves as people, and as well as what we're doing day to day, is going to change. That's why I chose the field I chose as an SEO. It's always changing. The only constant in what I do is change. And so if that's not our approach as we advance into this next era, you're already behind. If you don't see the fact that you have to continue to grow. And so if this is what forces that, I think we're stronger for it in the end.
Yeah, but I do think companies have to be smart about, being willing to upskill their, their workforce, right? Because it's easy enough if you happen to have chosen tech as a field, but someone who's been in a career for 25 years, it's, to me, it's a little bit short-sighted, all of the kind of employee reduction that's going on now, when an investment in upskilling their workforce, even if they still have to make a reduction, but upskilling that workforce into what the jobs of the future are. Because to me, it's not about, we need AI, we need metaverse, we need this, we need that. It's like the products and services of the future are going to change. I mean, they're changing now. And so how do you, perceive, like, where, what is the pathway for us forward, and how do we enable and empower our workforce to be able to, do these jobs in the future? I think there's going to be a lot of job creation, but I think between now and then is going to be a very frightening time for people. And we need to provide as much, for as many frameworks as we can for them to elevate where they are and shift their career in a positive direction.
You both made such great points. And I always like to kind of revolve this conversation from two different vantage points: the vantage point of the person who is getting their job potentially replaced, and the company that's replacing the job. And we need to challenge both parties to get a little creative and think outside the box. Because to, I think, both of your points, not everyone was brought up with a tech background, but at this point, we don't need that to be the case. So we need to understand, for the people that are looking for new areas to expand their work, you don't have to be super smart with tech. You don't have to learn how to code to be a really valuable piece of this puzzle. But then also, we really need to be challenging the corporations, the hiring managers, the people that are building out these teams to think creatively about what a technologically advanced, sorry, hard word, team looks like, right? Because in the past, a data scientist was a data scientist. You could hire a team of 10 data scientists that kind of all fit the same bucket. You have to know how to handle data. You have to know how to interpret data. You need to be able to talk about some business value from the outcomes of your products. Now we're seeing such a big need for product owners that understand AI, for strategists and ethicists and lawyers who understand AI. So really, you can come at it from any vantage point with just a little knowledge of AI and tech and be super valuable.
Yes, I fully agree with all of you. This is something that is going to have, we're going to have a little gap between, this transition. And it is important that we help close this gap as soon as possible. And I agree that companies need to provide tools and help people gain these skills because they are very necessary. There is a point when all of a sudden all these jobs are created and we need to fulfill them. And we can be, where do we find this talent? We need to start preparing people now and give them the tools for tomorrow or for now, really, for now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those are all fantastic points. There's so much opportunity, and I think as long as we can bring our future generation into this world and they're excited by it and they want to embrace it, I think we set on the right path. Up until now, we've been speaking quite hypothetically and in broad strokes, but let's bring it down to use cases. What use cases have you each seen where you've been really impressed about the end output of an AI application that's been integrated into a business?
I can talk about a project that we're just starting around measuring ESG and digital twins. So it's kind of combining, where my focus is more on immersive technology and digital twin. But of course, we have to understand, we have partners who are, experts in AI, experts in blockchain, because really it's sort of the confluence of all of these technologies. But it sort of starts with the concept of closed loop optimization, but using digital twin and sensors to start with data you already have in many cases to optimize your kind of building life cycle management. But then on top of that, building layers of understanding where you are today relative to your ESG goals. Then, especially for companies that have a multitude of physical spaces around the world, which many global companies do, what is the regulatory in each of those countries, ingesting that into the models so that we're able to measure where you are relative to regulatory and do transparent reporting. And then that top layer is, again, how are you going to meet the 2030 goals? Companies are working very, very hard on putting these together, but there's not a lot of existing data to kind of butt up against and look at, how do we actually reach these goals, right? And so we need data to actually pull that down to kind of harden where these concepts are and allow companies not only to meet their 2030 goals, but their 2050 goals and beyond.
Right.
When I think about all of the use cases that I've participated in just at Slalom alone, there are a lot of them, and they range anywhere from really new, upcoming, like fancy to average, maybe you would call it. And like when you think about that Gartner hype cycle, I get most excited about the models that are in that plateau of productivity, because those are the ones that we're actually really seeing drive a ton of value. So for me right now, the thing that I'm most excited about just implementing on a daily basis is really around anomaly detection, right? It's such a basic concept that can be literally applied throughout any company, any industry vertical. Recently, I was working with one of the largest tech companies in the world on their finance team. They didn't have any AI in place, and you would think, a company that is using AI in their products on a day-to-day basis, that their finance team would be using it, but they just weren't. And we set up a model that within a matter of days caught almost I think it was a $40 million accounting error, just from a really basic model. And I see those same things happening from company to company that we implement these really basic average models, easy to implement, but are just bringing so much value to companies.
That's amazing. I think being able to demonstrate that value is absolutely essential to getting the momentum that we need. Maria, do you have something you want to add?
Yes. So, I mean, I cannot talk anything internal to Google, but of course, one thing that comes to mind that can bring a lot of value is we are surrounded by so many sensors. And even when you look at the whole IoT industry, right? And a lot of these rely already on things like machine learning or other types of sensors with computer vision. And so all these AI can significantly simplify and provide data quicker to the user and or to the companies, etc. So they can use that data more efficiently. We talk about how do we process data? Do we go to the cloud? So all these tools can help simplify this, lower the latency as well, and provide a quicker feedback, which is what we need. And so, just thinking of the potential, just looking at the IoT industry or sensors or everything we are surrounded with and how this we can really benefit.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I think we're poised for great things. But we've got 3 minutes left, so I want to do quick fire. Can you very quickly give me your future predictions for AI? Where are we going? What's the most exciting thing? What's the scariest thing? What should we look out for? Amy?
Well, a prediction, I'm just willing this into being that I would like to see our own sort of self-sovereign identity powered by AI to allow us to manage our data and kind of build an economic construct around, an economy of abundance versus an economy of scarcity. And I think AI could be a tremendous component of that and help us get there.
Love it. Thank you. Maria?
Yes, I mean, I totally agree with Amy. I mean, the potential is huge, and we have now starting to build small building blocks. There's a lot we don't know yet, which is also exciting. But we are at the beginning, and I can't wait to see, what the future lies. But I'm very positive it's all going to be excellent. So,
Good. Jennetta?
AutoML tools have already been really popular over the past decade, but I think that they're just going to explode to the point where, as users, we have apps on our phone that are in our hands that we're able to really easily use that maybe a few decades ago would have seemed impossible to us. And I think that it's going to be the same with AutoML, where AutoML tools are going to be in everyone's hands, and people are going to be able to build AI products without having to put much effort at all into it. And that's really exciting.
That really is exciting times. Anne, do you want to close it up?
Sure. I think what I'm personally the most excited about is not the work applications, it's the personal. I think that AI has the potential to propel and speed up things like, medicine, understanding how to personalize healthcare on a mass scale. I think, shortening clinical trials, all these sorts of things that take so much human time. I think it's a truly exciting thing to see how AI will eventually help us live longer. I think that's something we're going to see in the next 10 years.
I agree, and I'm especially excited about what AI can do for humanity. I think when you look at it through the medical lens or through the lens of education, it's got so many fantastic applications, and we are just at the beginning. So it certainly is an exciting future we've got ahead of us. And I think it's going to be whatever we can imagine it to be. And as long as we're imagining a positive future, I think we can get there. So with that, thank you very much. It's been fantastic speaking to all of you. We're very honored that you have taken the time to be with us today on this panel. Thank you so much.